2017. And pledge allegiance. Bob, would you lead us?
Put your right hand over your heart. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Director Mishler?
Here.
Director Magner? Here. Director Kelly? Here. Director Malloy?
Here.
Chairman Dixon?
Here. Okay. Agenda, we have any amendments to the agenda, or can we have a motion to approve?
There's no
amendments to the agenda? Can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Director Malloy?
Aye.
Director Magner? Aye. Director Mishler?
Aye.
Director Kelly? Chairman Dixon?
Aye. And, okay, presentations, district highlights.
Chairman Dixon, members of the board, Nick Marienthal, Park Supervisor, and tonight I'll be presenting district highlights for the month of December. Up first, our sport division, USA Softball Tournament will be being held Monday, July 30th through Sunday, August 5th, and it's a Western Nationals Tournament at PV Fields and Mission Oaks Park. There'll be 60 teams in the U10 and U12 division. Moving over to CYBA, CYBA started their league on November 27th with practice, and games will be starting on January 6th. Going over to the Senior Center, we'll be having our annual Tech Fair Thursday, December 28th. This is where high school and college students will be stopping by to help seniors understand and use any of their electronic devices. You can call the Senior Center at 482-881 to make your reservations. Thursday movie lunch. Thursday, January 4th, the movie will be Going in Style, and the lunch will be sponsored by Tender Loving Care, Hospice, and Home Care. Reservations for lunch are $5 and should be made in advance. Excuse me. Thanksgiving potluck. Staff cooked 40 pounds of turkey for approximately 80 seniors. And coming up, New Year's dance, January 5th. You can ring in the new year at our annual evening dance. This is a semi-formal event with light appetizers will be served, and tickets are $7 in advance or $10 at the door. Over at our Aquatic Center, the Aquatic Center held the last of their fall swim lessons in November. Swim lessons will resume in January after the holidays. Since there are no swim lessons, evening lap swim hours have been extended. You can visit our website or call the pool at 805-987-8198 for more information. In December, the Aquatic Center will be closed on the following dates: December 9th, 25th, 26th, and January 1st. In our outdoor education, excuse me, staff is looking forward to introducing some new classes for 2018. Nature painting classes with the resident artist from Studio Channel Islands Art Center, a guest presentation by Ventura County Area Master Gardener Olwen Kingery, and also nature journaling classes. We will also be continuing to offer our usual guided nature hikes. Parks Department, 3 parks for the month are Neal Ranch Park, Nancy Bush Park, and Heritage Park. Our Neal Ranch Park. Our Neal Ranch Park is a community park that was developed in 1980. This park has a quarter-mile decomposed granite track and multiple exercise stations. The amenities are 2 picnic tables, 2 barbecue grills, 2 benches, 1 restroom, 1 drinking fountain, a parking lot with 23 stalls and 1 being ADA. Fitness equipment, running track, 1 playground, ages 2 to 12, and our Neal Ranch Park is 5 total acres. Nancy Bush Park. Nancy Bush Park was developed in 1968, and it is a popular community park. The amenities at Nancy Bush Park are 8 picnic tables, 3 barbecue grills, 1 group picnic area, 2 benches, 2 playgrounds, ages 2 to 5 and 5 to 12. 1 set of restrooms, 1 drinking fountain, and a walking path from decomposed granite. And Nancy Bush Park is 3.4 acres. Heritage Park. Heritage Park was developed in 1990 and is a family-friendly park and has a nice expanse of open space. Heritage Park offers 2 picnic tables, 1 barbecue grill, 2 sets of playgrounds, ages 2 to 5 and 5 to 12, 4 benches, and a concrete walkway. And Heritage Park is 9 total acres. Special events. We had breakfast with Santa this past Saturday, and we sold approximately 300 tickets and came to capacity, and it was a great event. Lots of flapjacks coming off the grill, so all the kids had a great time meeting Santa. And now I would like to turn it over to our General Manager, Mary Otten, to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Unfortunately, it is with much regret the district has to announce we will be canceling this year's Christmas parade in Santa's Village. As many of you know, the local school districts have canceled school all week due to the air quality. We've also heard from at least 32 different entrants which won't be able to attend. The other contributing factor has been the extension of the red flag warnings, which we can't guarantee and what those will look like. As we continue this process, our thoughts, like yours, are on the numerous fires in Southern California and the safety of our local community. This is the first time that we've canceled this parade in over 20 years, and it does come with regret, but it does look out for the community, and we want to make sure that if we were able to host it, it was a safe event. So, unfortunately, we will not be able to do that this year.
All right, thank you, Mary. Just from the board did confer with the city, and we gave this really very serious thought as to whether or not we should cancel this event or go forward. We know that it's an important tradition that a lot of people who've lived in this community for many years have come every year and really look forward to this. And it's really with deep regret that we felt that we had to cancel this. But we had entrants withdrawing, questions about the weather, questions about the resources of the county that we need to support this event, and we just didn't feel that we could go forward. But we are committed to resuming next year, and we'll do the best we can to bring the best ever at that time. So, if we can move on. Let's see, full-time district employee recognition.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I know this is going to come as a complete shock and a huge surprise, but we have chosen an employee who's been working with the district since March of 2001, and he has absolutely no clue it's him. So at this time, I really would like to ask Lanny Binney to come up and join me at the podium. Okay. For those of you that know Lanny, you all know he never stops. The programs he supervises are immense, and he's everywhere. I think every single sports enthusiast in town recognize that green pickup truck that he always drives, because you will see it at a softball field, at a baseball field, at a soccer field, maybe at an RC track or a BMX track, maybe at the hockey arena. Now it's at tennis courts, pickleball courts, and maybe the local gyms. Lanny is everywhere. Wherever there is sports going on in town, that's where Lanny is. He's even been known to drag and line ball fields when we're short-staffed or when there's new tournaments or games going on. He's trying to hide back here. He oversees contract classes that are related to sports. He has successfully brought new programs and leagues to the district, for example, the kickball league and pickleball lessons. He's taken on new responsibilities this year, including having a key staff member put underneath him for supervision. He also stepped up and was really instrumental in trying very desperately to put together this Christmas parade that we just had to cancel. He manages all kinds of things and is always willing to do whatever he's asked whenever he's asked. Many of us know we watch that clock and it gets to be 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we're all heading home. Lanny's usually heading out and continuing his workday and going out to these sports fields or going out to see if there's field monitors out there. He's nonstop on the go all day long. I bet he also has to probably do over 300 reservations a year as he manages all the sports-related reservations that are connected with our community service groups. He acts as our liaison between the PV School District and also the Oxnard Union High School District. He helps coordinate and organize all their sporting events when they use our facilities. So I'm sure I've left out a few things because Lanny does so much, but I'm very happy and proud, and on behalf of the Pleasant Valley staff and our board, we'd really like to congratulate Lanny for being nominated as our Employee of the Year.
Obligatory picture.
I guess not. I didn't know it was like a game show. Thank you. All right here. Thank you.
You gonna say a couple words for us?
Yeah, not more than 10 minutes, so. Okay, Friends of Camarillo Dog Park.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, at this time, I'd like to introduce Cheryl Marks, who is the chair over at our Friends of the Camarillo Dog Parks group, and also she has her treasurer here, Deborah. Would you like to come on up? Yeah. Come on. Oh, come both up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us again. First, I do want to say that for all of our friends, family, community members, neighbors, and throughout the counties that are affected by the fires, our hearts go out to you. We're praying for a quick resolution to these winds and wrap this up, and can't even express the gratitude we all feel for the first responders who have really just taken on this terrible challenge and doing the best they can for all of us. Anyway, so our 2017 year was fairly fun, fairly quiet. We did a couple of our usual events. We, of course, you know, our main thing is just to enjoy the dog parks, and yeah, we think heaven is a dog park. So we have our customary pictures of dogs and dogs having fun at our parks. This is our friend Nala at Mission Oaks off-leash area. And we had a coffee and canine in conjunction with Earth Day at Springville, and there's a few shots of the fun. We did a ice cream social of sorts with Mr. Softy over at Mission Oaks off-leash, and you can see that everybody seemed to enjoy that. We had a rattlesnake aversion training at Camarillo Grove Park. We had very successful training. How many did we train?
Oh my gosh.
50, 60?
Sure.
Something like
Right in
that.
Ish.
And then, of course, we had our Halloween event over at Mission Oaks Off Leash, and that's always a crowd pleaser, and dogs in costumes. Who doesn't love that? And so this is just kind of a tally of what we raised this year, $4,200, and what we've spent at the parks, and then some more just fun pictures of dogs at our parks. So again, we thank PVRPD board and staff for continuing to support us with the dog parks and this partnership. We do have some plans in the works to put some money into some improvements, help finish off some of the improvements at Camarillo Grove, and maybe try to mitigate some of the problems that were at Springville. Am I missing anything?
You got it all covered.
Okay.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you for all your help and work, and I've always enjoyed, it's always fun to see everybody at these dog parks. I mean, every time you go by, they're always busy. There's always somebody there and stuff. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your support.
Elaine?
I look forward to seeing you guys. I don't get up there because I don't have dogs, but I do stop by every once in a while when Cheryl has got access books. So.
And then you get to see everybody in action.
Then I get to see everybody. So, but thanks again for everything that you guys do and all of the donations that you put back into our parks. So,
You're welcome.
appreciate that.
Thanks for everything that you've done since the very beginning. When we had those meetings and you were saying, we should do this, we should do this. And, you know, I wasn't quite sure, but I can tell you that I'm a believer and have been a believer for some time. And for all of the people who haven't visited the dog parks, who have dogs who could get along in a dog park, everyone's can't. I happen to have a couple who can't. But for those of you who can, go out there and take your dogs out there so they can mingle. But also, you're likely to meet the very nicest people in all of Camarillo with these people associated with this group. Try it. It'll be fun.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to you since we put the artificial turf in at Oak Grove, and I wanted to hear what the feedback from the users has been about that.
So far, so good. Yeah. You know, there's a few like, what? And then, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. So
Yeah.
we're still, jury's still out, so to speak, but I think we are getting some positive feedback. Looks really nice.
Is that area big enough? That small dog area, is that a big enough space?
Now, that's a trick question. Right. Because it's never big enough.
My answer will always be more space.
Yeah.
Well, if you had the choice of having more space for that side of the park, given that the property line isn't moving and the parking lot and the street aren't going away, would you rather have more for the small dogs, or would you rather have it divided up the way it is now?
I'm kind of inclined to see what the rest of the feedback is, because we've only had a few people coming and going so far. So how about the jury's still out on that? Although we did actually gain a little bit of square footage with the parking lot repaving, and I want to definitely thank staff and everybody that helped us with getting those few extra inches. It's actually more than a few extra inches.
Yeah,
How much was
feet.
it? It was like several parking spots worth, and there was like this empty space that was nothing.
Yeah.
That we moved it over.
So we gained some width to it there anyway.
Yeah.
So I asked you a hard question. You gave me the politician's answer. Well done.
More space.
Yeah.
More space.
In a perfect world, sure, another couple feet could mean a lot.
Yeah.
But realistically, you know,
Yeah. Does the small dog owner tend to be more prevalent there than at other parks, would you say? Because it's so small to start with? Is that?
you know,
I would also comment that being a Camarillo Springs resident, we're only allowed to have dogs up to, I believe it's 18 inches to the shoulders. Because when you have so many elderly people, you can't have big dogs jumping up on them, so they're required to have small dogs. And I wondered if that sort of skews the users of that park towards smaller dogs.
well, if you take a look at the change in Springville, when the smaller section was expanded, the use doubled or even tripled.
Easy.
The amount of people that started using it, because before that they felt it was too small. They just couldn't do anything in it.
Yeah.
So-
It's still pretty small. But,
Yeah, but you see lots of people in there
Yeah.
now where you never,
Right.
before the expansion of that section, you didn't hardly see anybody in there. So that
Okay.
might speak to the use of the other, section at Cam Grove. If it was expanded, you might see more people use it.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
Oh, well, thank you guys. It's a great example of a win-win relationship. We provide a service that I would have never guessed would be so popular, and you guys really contribute back to us and make it work. And yeah, it's been a nice quiet year. I remember my first year on the board was not so quiet, and so quiet is good. And
Yeah, we like quiet too.
so keep up the good work, and we'll see you again next year, if not before. Thanks. Okay. Public comment. In accordance with Government Code Section 54954.3, this is your opportunity to present to the board. You have 3 minutes to do so. If you have an issue you'd like to speak to, if it's something related to the agenda, an agenda item, we ask you to wait till that agenda item comes up. Otherwise, this is your opportunity now. Normally, we ask you to fill out a yellow card, and I think this is the first time since I've been board chairman that there are no yellow cards. So does anyone in the audience wish to address the board at this time? If no, then we'll move on. Consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Director Magner?
Aye.
Director Malloy?
Aye.
Director Mishler?
Aye.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
Chairman Dixon?
Aye. Okay. Section 8, Item A, consideration and approval of part-time salary schedule.
Good evening, Chairman Dixon and members of the board. Catherine Drury with Human Resources. This evening, I am bringing you an updated salary schedule for the part-time employees for your review. It's recommended that you approve the schedule for 2018. This schedule is changing to align with the 2018 minimum wage increase, which, as we know, will be going up to $15 in 2022. This year, the increase will be 50 cents, bringing us and the state of California up to $11 per hour. Adjustments were made to the Recreation Leader 1, Landscape Custodian 1, and Admin Services Worker, bringing them up from $10.50, which was last year's minimum wage, up to $11 this year. The other position that was below the 2018 minimum wage was Rec Leader 2, and we're bringing that from $10.61 to $11.44. Again, it's recommended that the board review and approve the updated part-time salary schedule for 2018. Any questions or comments?
Mike?
None.
Elaine? Bob?
No.
Mark?
Oh, I would only mention that the fiscal impact in 2018 of this change is $2,560. So it's not a major impact on our operations, but
That's correct.
it is a change, and we're having this conversation because by law we have to pay people according to the approved schedule, and that's why it's on the agenda. So that's the only thing I had to say.
All right. Yeah, I have no comments. So can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Beat you.
Director Malloy?
Aye.
Director Magner?
Aye.
Director Mishler?
Aye.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
Chairman Dixon?
Aye. Okay. Consideration and approval of request for proposal for specifications for landscape maintenance services excluding Pleasant Valley Fields. Excluding.
Chairman Dixon, members of the board, Nick Marienthal, Park Supervisor. So tonight I'm requesting asking for board action. It is recommended the board review and approve the bid specifications for landscape maintenance services. A little background, in the fiscal year 2008-2009, the district reallocated funding from vacant grounds position to professional services. Excuse me. Utilizing a blend of in-house and contractual support helped increase both service delivery and quality and standard maintenance in the parks. In July 2013, the modified contract identified 25 sites for maintenance. After receiving and completing a review of the RFP package, staff interviewed the top 3 responsible bidders. In November 2015, staff initiated a 2-year contract with an original budget of $162,360, or $13,333 monthly. This contract will expire February 2nd, 2018. Quality Landscape Care was selected as contractor for the level of service requested. Analysis. During the preparation of the fiscal year 2017-2018, Parks budgeted staff evaluated the current landscape maintenance service contract. Currently, there is $415,596 allocated in the fiscal year 2015 through 2018 budget for all contract maintenance for all parks to include Pleasant Valley Fields. Staff has developed an RFP and bid specifications for this landscape maintenance contract in a way that allows the district the option to reduce services in any of the sites. With the increasing cost of minimum wage and the new prevailing wage laws, Quality Landscape Care had to raise their prices to stay in business. Their new rate to meet the district's current contract requirements would be $15,720 monthly or $188,640 yearly. The district allocated $162,360 for the fiscal year 2017 through 2018 for the maintenance. Alternative options would be allow the current contract to expire and initiate an RFP, extend the contract for good performance and negotiate a price for the 1-year contract extension, allow the contract to expire and initiate the district staff to maintain all park sites. This action will require the district to invest in both capital outlay for equipment as well as an additional staffing. Fiscal impact. The action before the board at this time has no current fiscal impact. However, it will have a fiscal impact when the bids come back. And again, it is recommended the board review and approve the bid specifications for landscape maintenance services. Is there any questions or comments?
Mike.
Yeah, hi, Nick. As I was looking through your package, under Exhibit E for turf management, they talk about wet and dry, wet areas and all that type of stuff for the lawns or turf. But I'm trying to understand in this document, are they supposed to go out and check the sprinklers periodically? Is that our own staff who actually check sprinkler heads?
It's a team effort. They're out mowing, so they see quite a bit. So we work together. Of course, our staff is responsible for going out and checking on that. But yeah, like I said, it's a team effort. And we're responsible for taking care of the irrigation.
Okay, because my history has been over the last several years is that's one of the big issues that comes up is sometimes the sprinkler head will go out and the grass is drying up and, blah, 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 or the valve goes out or something. And then a little period of time will go by before we find out about it or something.
Yeah, if they do see something, they do let us know right away.
So with our
as of now,
with our current contractor, so you're saying you're comfortable with what they have done in terms of notifying you, or do you think there's room for improvement there?
For the most part, yes. There has been some instances where stuff slipped by both of us or by the contractor, and we go out and take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Elaine?
Help me, Nick. What are we doing? Are we going to go out for bids? We're not going to extend? Or is that going to be decided in January?
They expire February 2nd, and as of right now, Quality Landscape Care has sent in a letter saying they at the current rate they would not be able to extend the contract.
Okay, so that's dead.
That would be dead, correct?
Okay.
If we're going to extend, we actually have the ability to negotiate that, so we could. But their bottom line with that would be $16,000. Their bottom line is $16,000 a month. So if the board chooses not to go with that amount, then we would go out for an RFP. Does that make sense?
No, because why are we looking at an RFP if we're not going to negotiate?
Because we wanted to come prepared to go out for an RFP, because for us to go out to an RFP, it will take longer. So the other options with that would be is that we negotiate the $16,000 as we move forward. But if we're not going to move forward with that, then we would want to go out to an RFP, and those take those take time. So in order to move that forward, we would have to be able to get the RFPs come back to be ready for when we would transition through.
So we're going to possibly, you want us to approve the RFP, so if you can't do something with the negotiations, you can move forward with the RFP?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm with you. Thank you very much.
Nick, can you bottom line it for me? What cost have they incurred that have gone up so much that would require that much of an increase? I know that you said prevailing wage and various other wage-related expenses, minimum wage, such and such, but is that pretty much their argument?
That's exactly their argument.
Okay.
Mark?
Yeah, I noticed that you've asked them to bid it 3 ways, essentially. And is your intention to be able to move between the 3 modes based on what season it is and what condition things are in, so that we can cut our costs back?
Partly that, and just to give us a broader look at what we could do,
Yeah.
and what bids come in at.
Yeah, yeah. I like that a lot, because that helps you understand the bidders better, what they value when you see the deltas in the levels. And I can also see that since this is such a big budget item, and things come up that we don't expect, and sometimes you got to cut corners some places to make it all fit. This would give us some extra flexibility. So I like the way you did that. So
Thank you.
I have no other questions.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to what Director Magner was just asking. So is the intent that you will go ahead if we approve going out for an RFP? Are you still planning to try and negotiate with them and potentially not solicit bids, or?
No, I think we would rather go with an RFP and go back out to bid.
Okay, so this, I guess from what Mary said, their bottom, essentially the negotiation is done. If they've said their bottom line is $16,000 a month,
exactly,
then it sounds like there is no room for negotiation there anyway. Okay. Okay.
That's a question.
Okay.
When you're done.
Okay. No, that's my last question. Director Kelly?
That last discussion we just had piqued my interest. Maybe I'm just not aware, but what prevailing wage issues come up with these contractors in regard to our service needs?
I'm not exactly sure. What do you mean?
I mean, how does that affect their? I mean, what prevailing wage issues do we have, and they're working with us, that cause them to pay more money?
That, I believe, it's just the new laws that have come into play, and like I said, when their contract expires in February, to go, we had the option to renew for another year, but he wanted that extra amount of money to cover prevailing wage and the regular wage increases.
So what they're anticipating, in other words. But do you see any prevailing wage situations coming up in regard to the work they do for us, or is this doubling down on that particular item because they're facing it with other customers?
I can't give you an exact answer. I'll have to look more into that.
All right. That's fair enough.
Okay.
I'd probably call their bluff.
I was going to say, I think the other part of that, when we negotiated the contract 2 years ago, we didn't have some of the prevailing laws that we have right now. So some of that is due to the fact that we now have prevailing wage and those things that are in place. So for them to be actually able to at least be able to hedge their bets, per se. So that's why, after staff talked and looked at this, it's probably better to go back out, see what the true cost of this is. And if they really are the lowest at $16,000, then we come back and we know that's the lowest that we can, or the best that we can do with this.
Yeah, my point is, if somebody's going to use a prevailing wage issue as a basis for raising prices, I just want to know what that looks like.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Yeah. I guess the last comment I'd have is I just calculated that's a 16%. They're asking for a 16% increase, and that's way beyond inflation and way beyond the minimum wage changes. So if prevailing wages laws have truly affected us in that way, that's pretty significant. So anyway, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion that we approve the bid specifications for landscape maintenance services excluding Pleasant Valley Fields.
I'll second.
Director Magner?
Aye.
Director Mishler?
Aye.
Director Kelly? Aye. Director Malloy?
Aye.
Chairman Dixon?
Aye. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, consideration and approval of request for proposal for specifications for landscape maintenance services for Pleasant Valley Fields and Sports Complex.
Good evening, Chairman Dixon, members of the board. Tonight, I have before you a request. Staff is seeking the board to consider and approve the request for proposal of specifications for landscape maintenance of the Pleasant Valley Field Sports Complex. Pleasant Valley Fields is a 55-acre multi-sport facility complex primarily designed for youth recreation and competitive soccer programs, adult softball and kickball recreation leagues. Along with the sports fields at this site, it also includes one playground, 3 restroom facilities, 2 concession areas, 1 multi-use meeting room, and equipment storage for the user groups and maintenance. Some background, Pleasant Valley Sports Complex has been identified as one of the premier facilities to play in Southern California. This recognition has been achievable because of the high level of standards set by staff and followed through with our contractual support. Prior to the construction completion of this park, staff evaluated the cost maintenance comparison of in-house staff versus contractual support. The initial evaluation identified contractual landscape maintenance of the site would result in a significantly lower cost to the district. Towards the end of the completion of the construction phase of Pleasant Valley Fields, staff, with the help of the ad hoc committee, together they developed a landscape maintenance request for proposal that was designed for a high level of care that would sustain the fields for both recreational and high level competitive sports. The RFP was sent out in October 2009 with a short turnaround, and proposals were received later that month. Staff in the ad hoc committee had received 60 viable bid proposals and conducted interviews early November 2009. Then later that month, at a November special meeting, there was a recommendation for Valley Crest Landscape Maintenance as the most qualified contractor that was presented to the board, and it was unanimously
We get it.
Voted for it.
Yeah, all of us.
Everyone voted in favor for the contract. Got a little tongue twisted there. Some more background. The original contract with Valley Crest consisted of a 3-year term with extension options. Then in 2014, an addendum to the contract was made prior to its expiration, which extended additional 3 years. And this addendum included a 4% reduction that we negotiated to the cost of the contract, and it also included additional restroom facility maintenance as far as janitorial goes. The current agreement is set to expire at the end of the month, this month. The district has currently negotiated with Brightview Landscape Maintenance, formerly known as Valley Crest Landscape, the maintenance to maintain continuous service until the new landscape service bid has been awarded. The district seeks to solicit proposals for landscape maintenance and janitorial surfaces to sustain the current standard level maintenance service at the site. The proposed RFP contains contract specifications that are very similar to the current amended contract specifications with minor notable changes, which I'll identify on the next slide on the table. Here's the current contract, and here's what the new RFPs. Here's just a comparison, like turf aeration. The times per year right now it's slated for 6 solid tines, 3 coring. Just through experience, you get better root growth, better aeration with coring tines. So I increased that to 8 times coring tines for the ornamental, and for the ornamental turf is 1. Ornamental turf, it would be like all the entry areas that aren't used for playing. They're kind of considered passive use. And then fertilization per year. Currently, we're doing 6. Actually, we're doing 6. It's our current contracts is 6 times. However, we have done it more. We're doing it more. Working with the contractor, we as Nick mentioned, we work as a team. We do a little for them, and they help us out greatly. And we've been able to do it in a matter of like actually we've done them split applications where we've done 2, put out the amount of fertilizer that we need in one application. We've done it in 2 so we get more sustained growth. It's just better for the turf. You don't get those spikes, peaks and valleys. Softball, the softball field setup originally, it was added as an addendum. This contract will be inclusive. Restroom cleaning was an addendum, as I mentioned, when we did that reduction in 2014. And with this contract, it will be inclusive. The term, original term was a 3-year term with 2 1-year extensions. This contract we're looking at a 3-year with 2 2-year extensions, making that a total of 7 years, potentially, if we get a contractor that is good and we like them. We have that option to continue services. Analysis of this, staff is predicting that there could be an 8 to 12% increase, which could equate to approximately $20,000 to $30,000 based on the following. We have the current economic climate, the state level wage changes prevailing, minimum wage that affects what they're paying their laborers, and changes within the bid proposal specifications as far as frequency of fertilization, all that. There's no immediate fiscal impact associated with the approval of the RFP and authorization to solicit proposals. The current project schedule anticipates staff coming back to the board with a recommendation for a contractor in February's meeting. At that time, staff will advise the board of directors of the proposed not to exceed contract amounts and confirm funding availability. So the action that we're asking for tonight is to consider the approval and approve the request for proposal and specifications for the landscape maintenance services for the Pleasant Valley Field Sports Complex. Any questions?
Mike.
Yeah, hi, Matt. Can you go back to that slide you had with the comparison from existing to proposed new one? And as you're doing that, the first question is, you were saying the existing contract is going to be expiring at the end of this year? Or am I confused?
No, that was correct.
And then you're saying, of course, the new one won't start until February. So what's going to happen in January?
We've negotiated. They're going to continue
on a month-to-month basis?
At the
Okay. So we don't have a gap in there or anything. So we're covered for that.
No gap in service.
Okay. My question, and I'm happy to see that you're going with more coring and stuff. My question to you, Matt, is you know, to me, for that grass out there, the key is the soil. We have very poor soil. The original native soil was all stripped off and used elsewhere when they were doing the development, for people who don't know. And then they brought in dirt and rock from basically Thousand Oaks as backfill, and that's what they put the turf down on. And so we don't have very good soil conditions there for the grass roots to grow into. Is there something else what I'm trying to get to, is there something else we should be doing to improve the soil conditions so that over time we'll have better soil there? Is there something else you can think of that we maybe need to do? I'm just asking you, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see more coring, but is there something else we could be doing out there?
Definitely. But really not pertaining to the contract. It'd be more equipment and materials for injection. That's probably the thing that I would recommend.
But that's an in-house type of thing?
Yeah, that'd be another capital.
But that'd be an in-house project with our own labor and stuff? Or potentially we use them?
We'd have to look at that.
Okay, if we did that, is that part of the contract for those additional?
It could be a reduction, because then we'd be purchasing fertilizer on our own. So,
but would this existing proposal include that option if we went down that?
No.
Do we need to put that in there or something, or is that something we can work out later if we did?
We could put that in as an addendum, or I'm not sure how we would work that into this.
I'm just looking down the road. I mean, I want to be in a position where if we had money and if we wanted to do that, if we want to do soil improvements out there, and make sure that we don't run into contract issues or problems.
In conjunction of what's going on with the the contract. With granule fertilizer, we could always put other supplements in other than the nutrients that they're delivering with the granule. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could do to help with that. So,
but that we don't have to put that into this RFP.
I don't believe it would be necessary, because
okay.
I think both things are still necessary. Both applications would be necessary.
Okay, because my long-term vision is to improve the soil out there, and as we improve the soil, then the watering would be more effective, and the grass would do better. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to get to long term. And I just want to make sure. I want to make sure we're moving kind of in that direction if we can.
Yeah, and we could, and I don't think excluding the granular fertilizing is going to. I don't think we'd have to negotiate that. We'd be adding supplements in addition to that.
Okay. With our existing contractor, when I was out there walking around, I mean, I walk out there every month or something, but I was out there several weeks ago before the strawberry tournament, a week or two before the strawberry tournament by ASO put on, and I noticed there were a lot of dry areas out there that I'm not sure if that was just a watering issue, or is our existing contract, my question is the existing contractor doing a good job checking the sprinkler heads? Because in this contract, they are supposed to be checking and doing maintenance on the sprinkler systems and stuff, correct?
Yes.
I mean, that's part of that's part of their contract, not our staff.
It's all in there. It's pretty.
So are they doing a good job on that? Because when I was out there walking around that one time, it didn't seem like they were, but I'm not sure if I'm just wondering what your experience is.
Some of it has to do with, scheduling and whatnot. We had some issues with the irrigation where we had mainline breaks, and we had some interruptions with water delivery. So there's a few times where the city water, where they lost power at the plant, and I didn't get the reclaimed water. There's a couple times where that happened, but for the most part, they're good. I have actually a seasoned irrigation guy out there that's on staff all the time, so he's really good at making repairs and noticing them. So,
has their personnel been pretty stable over the last year or two? I mean, they're not swapping in and out people every other couple of months or something, or are they pretty much the same personnel over the last year or two?
Yeah, for the most part of the last year, I had the same staff out there. And I recently just received a new account manager that's been really helpful and real communicative.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Elaine.
Matt, the 8 to 12% increase, does that include the new requirements?
The new requirements, yes, that's included.
That's just not the salaries and
No,
the
because
wages and things.
Yeah, because I was kind of looking at their salaries, what they're paying their guys, and they're not too far under the prevailing wage for laborers. I'm not sure about irrigation tech and supervision and all that, but as far as the laborers, the guys that are there doing the routine stuff day in, day out, they're not too far away from prevailing wage rates.
Okay, so you don't think they would use that as a reason to up their price?
Well, yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't be like 15%. That's what I'm fishing for.
Yeah, I can't really answer that. It's all how they plan on bidding, or whoever plans on bidding, and what their profit margins are.
Okay.
So.
And I guess this is for Bob and Mary, but, and I know we decided we were going to go out a long time ago, but I'm just getting concerned with the money that we're spending out there, that it just seems to be of what our return is.
Yeah, I mean, at this point with this current contract, we're at a sunset, and we don't have any options to renegotiate or anything. We've already used our extensions.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Well, in this document that I'm looking at now, does this have any language in it borrowed from the previous documents when we first originated?
Yes, it does.
What parts are those?
Oh gosh, I'd have to go through this.
You don't have to name specifically. Just give me an in general.
There's most of the language is in the. Let me find this section so I could kind of point you there. It's in the landscape specs. I'm trying to. Oh. Exhibit E. So I had two contracts that I was going through. I was comparing it to our current contract and some stuff that we looked at another comparable contract, and what I did was I was taking the best of both to get this as tight as we can as far as specifications. So we have a nice tight contract that we could hold the contractor to and get the best possible maintenance program out there. So,
do you think this contractor that we have now has lived up to everything they said they would do when this originally came up back in 2010?
Well, there's been several growing pains that I've experienced with them, but overall, I'd say they've been very reliable. They've worked with me, like, as far as doing extras that's not in the contract. So in that aspect, I think they've done a great job. There's probably a couple of years that I've aerated more than 8 times and fertilized more than was specified. But with any contract of that size with a site like that, it's kind of like Nick alluded to, a team effort, and we've kind of helped them out with equipment, and they've helped me out with more service or more product, more. But I had a lot of growing pains because they were going through a lot of staff for a period there. We've been pretty stable the past 2 years, and I've been happy with their overall performance.
Well, what I noticed, because I'm out there a lot, as you know, is that it seems like when somebody is like a rising star, somehow that person always ends up leaving for some reason. And then we have people out there that are just basically ordinary park maintenance guys. They're not sports field guys. Do you remember that meeting when I asked the owner of the company or the superintendent of the company whether or not they were going to take care of the fields as though they were sports fields as opposed to just general park area, and how they pointed in their
and their glossies to all the places that they had maintained and done all this great work. Do you think they've lived up to that?
Like I said, we've had a lot of ebbs and flows, bumps in the road. We've got a pretty good core group of guys out there now. There's a lot of different nuances with that site. The soil quality, the fact that we're reclaimed water now, is been added, several more challenges, and just the amount of use it gets. It gets a lot of use, and it's really hard to maintain a good playing field when grass grows by the inch and is warmed by the foot, and it's a challenge. There's constant practices. It's really difficult, and I think they've done a good job.
What you're saying then is the dirt is not good out there.
It has its challenges. And
then
it's not favorable.
And all the play on top of that makes it worse. And then the reclaimed water with all the nutrients, then that makes it even worse. So it's a fairly difficult place to maintain, is it not?
Yeah, that would be a good.
That's an understatement, huh? Do you know if at the present time the contractor is using equipment from other sites on PV fields?
No, they have all dedicated mowers. They have dedicated mowers for the site, and they have their own aerating equipment that stays there on site. All the ball field maintenance equipment's stored there on site.
And do you recall the meetings where this board discussed how interested we were in making sure it was dedicated equipment?
I remember, I believe that's in the specs.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yet the current RFP allows the contractor to bring in other equipment.
I don't believe so. I believe the current contract has that the equipment must be for the site only.
I refer you to page 163 of 179.
Excuse me?
Page 163.
Okay.
Turf management section. All mowers must be used exclusively at the park or adequately cleaned and sterilized prior to use to prevent undesirable weed species intrusions.
I do see that. I missed that. If you like, we could approve it with that amendment.
Well, the reason that I mention that is I have the same grass at my house as I got it about the same time. And I have fought and fought and fought with the guys that come and do my lawn about all this caculia and all this other stuff that comes in because they're supposed to wash their blades, but they don't do it. And so I suspect, especially with people coming and going from this type of employment, and while I know you stated that you thought it was fairly stable, I might beg to differ with that opinion. But with new people coming in and so forth, it only takes a few times to put caculia on that beautiful turf out there. It only takes a few times, in fact, for somebody to come out and mow along the edges of the field where the weeds have intruded and then spread them to the interior. I have to agree and commend that so far we have done a very good job at making sure we have not gotten alien in our midst out there. And I'm talking about all the different kinds of weeds that are bad for the turf. And I don't want to see that happen.
I understand, and that's in here. It's pretty. The weed management it's pretty tight as far as.
I think that if we allow a contractor to claim that they wash their machines, and then the question comes up, well, how well did they wash them? Is it just spraying on them a little bit and then moving on? I suggest we should have that put in there. If that's a requirement that we've had and should be maintained, in my humble opinion.
Let me interrupt here. I was involved in this, drawing this up in the beginning, and the reason that clause is there is because they might have to take the mower away from the park to have it worked on. It's not, they have no intention to use it anywhere else. A mower like that has its mowing height set for just that park and just those conditions, and that's put in the contract so that if the mower had to physically leave to be worked on, they could do it. You can't do all repair operations on site.
Well, I was there also, and I agree that was part of it, but at the root of it all was we didn't want them mowing somewhere else and then mowing the turf out there. Because we spent all that money for turf. If as Director Malloy will recall, we had a fairly large dispute over whether we were going to put turf versus hydroseed in there. And the turf won out by one vote, as I recall. And given the 3 members that stuck their neck out to get turf, they certainly did not want to have weed intrusion, which I might say we got anyway, for other reasons that I won't go into here. I just don't think that we can rely on a contractor to sterilize their machines before they use them, and if we put that clause in there, very likely we will end up with a problem that we would rather not have.
Just going back to what Mark said, now that he mentions that, it does make a lot of sense, because if they do have a mower that goes down and they have to send it out, then they get a loaner, we would require them to sterilize that, because we have to keep going. They can't have like 50.
That's reasonable.
Can I just help out for a second? Maybe we can add a sentence in there and modify that sentence to where it has to be sterilized under the direct staff supervision, so that we have one of our staff members physically washing them, sterilize it or something. Will that help you?
No, I just think we shouldn't allow it unless under the conditions exist that Director Malloy just suggested. If it goes down, yeah, we have to have other equipment, and at that time, it should be observed whether or not it's been appropriately prepared to do the turf. I don't have a problem with something that sensible. What I have a problem with is if you give them a little, they'll take a lot. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It's not, it's important to me, but it's not of major the increase in cost is of major concern to me. I want to bring up another issue that I've brought up many times. Director Mishler brought up this issue about brown spots on the fields out there. And I know we've had this discussion not only in meeting, but also I think I've had this discussion with you on a few occasions. The way that the area it was graded out there causes the water to hit the high spots and run to the low spots. In order to keep enough water on the high spots to keep them from going brown, you end up flooding out the certain areas. They turn really green and they stay wet, and then they get torn up through the use. And in addition to the contractor driving their carts through those wet areas. What do you think we could do to take care of the problem that Director Mishler raised? I propose putting the 1.5 inch coupling. In fact, we put one of them out there, but we could never use it because the pumps are never turned on, which we shouldn't even have to have in the first place, but for everybody grading the dirt off of those fields when it started. But what do you think that we can do to that? And what do you think about my idea of installing the 1.5 inch couplings there so that the contractor, instead of trying to water the whole thing in order to make certain areas green, they just water the areas that actually need it?
I think it would work well in isolated areas. However, as a whole, we're talking about 37 acres of hybrid Bermuda that we use for sports, soccer and softball. To put and if you're familiar with the site where the irrigation main lines go, they're on the outside. You'd have to stretch hundreds of feet of hose, 1-inch hose, just to get it delivered where you want it. That'd be a big time undertaking. I think the better approach would be to invest in some injection system down the road where we could put a surfactant in that would kind of help with the penetration of some of those unfavorable clay soils out there. I think that would be probably a more cost-effective approach.
Well, you know that I've used the fire hose out there.
Oh yeah, it works well. I've used it.
It does work.
But I mean, like I said, to drag 300 feet of hose around just so you could get from the outside into the center, it's a lot. It's a lot of labor to do that. I've done it myself. You know, hitting spots that were dry and turning fallow. So, yeah, I know it's a lot of work. It's not easy either. It's a
couple of guys can do it. At any rate, I don't want to waste everybody's time on that. I know golf courses do it. Golf course is a little different gig. I get that. That's all I have.
Mark.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see the increase in aeration because and fertilization, because it looks to me like you're planning to aerate and fertilize every 6 weeks. That's a pretty aggressive schedule.
Yes. Currently we're doing it pretty often right now.
You're doing it more than
we're doing it
6 times?
At about average 8 times a year.
Oh, you are? Okay.
We have, I mean, this year probably not as much, but years past we have.
Have you switched over to all core?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're not getting user complaints about getting cores on the ground?
No, because we pretty much, how we've done it is we've done one day, drug out the cores once they've dried out, and then move practice back over there and then do the other side. So we've kind of moved practices around so we could accommodate that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you do any work moving the cores into the low spots, like where the assistant referees run on the soccer fields and create a little?
Whatever, not so much. Whatever kind of fills in there. I mean,
drag
it kind
sort
of
of does that for you.
We're dragging it out with the chain drag.
Yeah.
Kind of like same as we use for a ball field.
One of the problems with such an incredibly smooth surface is what we have out there as opposed to our regular park is every little fraction of an inch of difference in height is very visible. Mm-hmm. And the more perfect you make things, the more perfect you want things. So my initial reaction was, gee, that's an awful lot of work, but I also know that we're asking an awful lot out of that park. Also looking at the 8 to 12% number, this is a 3-year contract, so they're looking for a number that will cover them 3 years forward. Mm-hmm. The last 12 months, the federal data numbers show the cost of living's gone up 3%. So, and knowing they have a lot of minimum wage employees and $1 an hour each year forward is significantly more than that. So those numbers appear really reasonable to me, but less reasonable since I have to pay them. But numerically, they seem reasonable. So I don't have any problem with that. And moving a is it 6 or 8 reel mower they use out there? Moving one of those to another place is not a trivial action.
Yeah, it takes a lot.
So it's not something they're going to want to do other than in an emergency. So and I wouldn't want to make them feel like, well, it's broken, we don't have to work now until it gets fixed because it can't leave. So I think overall they've done a really good job. But like I say, that when you expect a really high standard, it takes a really high level of working with both the users groups. I mean, I remember when the park first was out there, and the soccer club had not restriped the fields in most of a season, and there were big ruts developing where the assistant referees ran. And I got a little rude with some of the people involved about why weren't they moving the fields around, because once you destroy a surface that flat, it's really hard to get it back. And since then, they've done a lot better. And once you see it go bad, you're like, oh my goodness, how could we have done that? But that we're asking them to do a lot of things too. So it's not just all on us. The users are doing their share as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually fearful the numbers are going to come back higher than this, which will just create a challenge for us. But the flexibility you built into the non-PV fields contract might help us address some of that fiscally too. So I have no other.
Okay. Unlike some of the other board members, I'm not a turf expert, so I'm going to ask you some questions that may seem very basic to other people. But as far as Director Mishler asked, what could we do to improve the soil there, and you mentioned the injection program. I guess you put fertilizer and surfactants and things like that to basically improves the environment of the soil, but doesn't actually improve the soil. Is that?
It does improve the environment of it, but there are other additives that you could add, that like humic acid. It adds humates to it, and there's also inoculants you could put in there that build up the soil, food web for the microorganisms that are breaking down organic matter in there that release the nitrogen and whatnot, and gets locked up in the soil. So there's a lot of other stuff you could use that chase into the irrigation system that would help the soil structure itself. And then increasing to 8 times, we're pulling the cores out, then we're pulling back in that loose organic material from the grass, the plugs. So and that goes back in there, decomposes, and then you're getting that carbon exchange with it's a whole kind of life cycle that goes on underground that we're not really aware of, that most people aren't really aware of.
So over time, conceivably, the soil could become a healthier.
Yeah, especially with increased aerations. It's you're adding organic matter to the soil, and that just improves it all around. You do that more and more and more, then you have a better network of roots. You're going to have more airspace that's allowing gas exchanges between the roots and the atmosphere.
Okay. And as far as some of the things you talked about that the injection system could add to the soil, are those not as readily added to the soil just by topically applying it, or?
It's usually a little more expensive when you get in granule form, because you're paying for the carrier to get the product out there. Where if you're putting it directly into the irrigation system, it's being delivered. That's how you're delivering. You're not paying laborers to spread it. You're not paying for the extra carriers, the inert materials to get it out there. A lot of fertilizers they coat, so they have the weight to broadcast it, and very little piece of that granule is actually nutrients.
Yeah. Okay. So. And this is going to probably sound really silly, but is there any option of, on a periodic basis, just taking good topsoil and spreading it on the surface and irrigating it into the lawn? And
currently, we aerate once annually, and then we top dress it with a top dress material where we add in extra organic material along with some sand to fill in those cores, and get that where it kind of changed. Over time, it'll change the soil texture a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Getting to the contract, you're looking for a 3-year contract with 2-year extensions. Now, the previous one was one had a single extension on it, and the previous contract, when it came to the extension, rather than actually. That extension is not just extending the contract under its current form, because I see that previously you actually negotiated a 4% decrease.
Yeah, we made an amendment to the contract before it expired and added the janitorial work and it got that cost reduction.
Okay. So when it comes to these extensions, that is a period of negotiation. Is that just
correct?
So, and that's just negotiating directly rather than going out for an RFP.
Yeah.
And you'd only go out for another RFP if somehow in that extension period you were not able to come to agreement as to what the new terms
for
are.
for example, Quality Landscape, they could not go forward with the price that we're paying them now. So that was we couldn't at that time entertained it, but we didn't. So it's always you have that option at the end. That's at the time when you would make those negotiations.
So the current was the original. I'm sorry, I've lost it now. It was originally 3 years, and then there's a 2-year extension. Is that what it was, or?
There was two 1-year extensions.
2-year, 1-year. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. So you're speculating an 8 to 12% increase in the new contract after the termination of this basically 5-year contract.
Yes.
Okay. Because I think I'd agree with Director Malloy. That may be a little optimistic to think that we've had not a 4. We were actually negotiated a 4% decrease in the midst of this 5-year contract, and now over another potentially 7 years, we're hoping for only 8 to 12%. But I mean, hopefully that's doable.
Yeah.
But that.
I think it's pretty competitive out there, especially for this size of contract. So we're hoping for some sharp pencils coming back.
Yeah. The other thing too is I was too surprised that to see you're aerating 8 times a year. That's and in a normal non-sports park. How do you aerate those every year or once a year or?
Yeah, as needed. We'd like to do it annually, but realistically, we focus mainly on sports fields. Our passive use areas, if they become to the point where they're becoming fallow or they're just not doing well. Like dog parks, for example, that's another area that we aerate more than passive use areas. And they kind of treat them like sports fields.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any?
One follow-up.
Another question? Okay.
Matt, in this contract proposal you have here for the RFP, when you say it's a 3-year contract, is it the same amount for each one of those 3 years? Or is there, I'm trying to remember, I think it's just one amount, isn't it? Spread out over 3 years, correct?
Correct. Unless when they come, they say based on prevailing wage increases.
Well, that's my question I'm going to. That's the point I'm going to is, would it be of any benefit to us to have, we want a 3-year contract, but we want it with terms, first year, second year, third year, so that they can build in, I'm just asking, potentially if that would help us, because they're obviously going to be, over a 3-year period, they're going to be including some of those wages at the end, up front. But I'm not sure if it all really works out the same at the end of the 3-year period, or if, you know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if there's any logic or anything to gain from going from first, second, and third year.
We can look at, as part of the process, we can look at that. I think what we've found is that when you lock them into a 3-year, it locks them in at 3 years. So that means that if their prices or something goes up in year 2 or 3, you still have that, so you don't see another price increase until the 2-year extension.
You're saying it all washes out in the end, kind of. It should balance out. Okay.
I'll get one more question when you're done.
Yeah, I said one thing I forgot to ask you is, could you just remind us, I didn't see it in here, what currently are we paying monthly?
We're paying approximately, about 20,000. That's with the ball field, and it's dependent on ball field how many setups they have, because we charge them per setup, or they charge us per setup. So if they drag the fields and prep them, 20 times, they're just charging us for 20 times. If it's 25, they're charging us for 25. So it's right around $20,000 a month.
Okay, so $240,000 a year.
Yeah, approximately like 246, I think, is what we budget.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Nick. How, given this contractor, how would prevailing wage issues come into play, allowing an increase of our monthly nut? How would prevailing wage issues come up in our relationship with them, based on the current law?
Based on the current law, well, when we first started these contracts, the prevailing wage didn't include landscape maintenance laborers. So that's why now they're required for any public works project with landscape now is prevailing wage requirements. So they're required to pay their employees prevailing wage rates.
But have they done anything where prevailing wage would apply?
Currently?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, they have.
When?
No, the current contractor, no, they're still working off the old.
Right,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
so yes and no to this. And the reason I say that is the current contract is what it is, so they can't all of a sudden come back and increase their rate. With that being said, if the state law says that they have to, so let's say the contract right now, they're paying an hourly employee $15 an hour. They're now under a new state law, and the state law says prevailing wage for these employees are $17. They have to pay them $17 an hour. So what's starting to happen is they are now losing potentially money on this contract because this is what we agreed to, but state law means that they have to pay them what that wage rate is, and so potentially some of these are losing money, which was the exact same that happened with quality.
I think maybe I'm not hearing it right or something, but I think what you're saying is the law might change, and therefore we got to charge more money.
No, it has changed, currently changed, and what I'm gathering from Mary's, they're absorbing that change now.
Okay, then that's my question.
Yes.
What is that change?
So the change,
and how does it affect us?
So the change before was landscape maintenance was not part of prevailing wage. The law has now included landscape maintenance as prevailing wage. So they're required to pay that wage. In the previous, they didn't have to pay prevailing wage.
So isn't that just on certain projects, though, that they would be doing? If so, have they done any of those projects for us?
This is considered a public works project because it's going out to bid and we're a public agency, so that, in fact, changes it.
And prevailing wage now includes routine maintenance for public works projects exceeding a certain amount, which this project does. And it's same with like tree maintenance services. That before wasn't landscape. I mean, that wasn't prevailing wage. Now they're required to pay tree trimmers prevailing wage.
Well, has our contractor recently given everybody a raise?
Well, like I said, they were close in line with what prevailing wage was already, so they're not they were proactive, I guess, or that's just how their pay structure was. So it's not affecting them to the point where they're losing, tremendous amount of revenue otherwise, or income. Otherwise, we would have probably received a letter saying they could no longer service our contract.
So what you're saying is they weren't really being hurt that much by this prevailing wage since they were already paying close to it anyway. And so therefore, then I would wonder why so much of an increase? Even though ultimately at the end of the day it may prove not to be that much of an increase, but at least at the present time it appears to be so.
Well, cost of goods and then the current economic market, there's more work out there. Before there, when the market took a crash, these guys were scrambling to get whatever they can and low bid everything. So now a lot of the contractors could, choose. They have the ability to choose their work. So it's, when times are good, when times are bad, you can get better prices.
So we were getting a deal all that time.
With a 4% reduction, we were.
Well, yeah, that was nice. That was nice to see something like that once in a while. So good work on that. But I guess maybe the answer just isn't that clear to me. But I just want to know, if somebody's going to ask the citizens of this district to pay more money, it seems obvious to me that somebody ought to say, this is the reason why, rather than this might happen or that might happen. If you're telling me that they have to pay all their guys more because of prevailing wage, and then you tell me, well, they're not really going to have to because they were already close to it to start with, what is the average citizen supposed to think about that?
So let me see if I can answer this. So maybe I'm just not clear. So just a little bit ago, we talked about minimum wage. We're at 50 cents. It goes up by 50 cents. So we were close to what we were paying for minimum wage. We have the option to jump it from $10 to $12, which means next year you're not going to see as big of an increase. So with this company, what they were doing is paying higher wages to their employees, probably to keep them. Prevailing wage comes in and doesn't give them an option. This is what prevailing wage is. So it makes a less of an impact on them if they were already paying higher wages to begin with, is where that makes that difference.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, that's clear to me. What I'm getting at is then how do you make the argument you need more money if you were already paying that amount, unless you had lost money for, as Matt suggested?
I think the problem there is that they're looking out 3 years, we're asking for a 3-year contract. So 3 years from now, the minimum wage is not going up 50 cents a year. It's going up $1 every year. So that's $3 more per hour 3 years from now, starting next year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's a big difference. And so, I mean, you got to look at that, right?
Well, and two, you're talking minimum wage. You're not talking prevailing wage.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different ballgame.
Right. But I'm just giving an example. I mean, the fact is that they're going to be, even if they're mashing it, even if they're getting by right, they're scraping by right now, as they're looking out 3 years, they're potentially going to have some problems. So,
well, all I could say is this. I think if we're going to have stuff like this on the agenda, which we are, maybe we should do a little bit more work on making sure that the arguments by the contractor are a little more clear. Like, I'm not real big on somebody coming in and say, hey, wait, things are going to go up, so I need more money.
Well, that's why we're going out to bid. I mean, that's the whole reason we're going out to bid. I'm confused on your question because
we're not, because this is probably the only contractor that's going to be able to do this work.
Well,
because that's what happened last time. So it's not like we have a ton of choices. Well, so that's why I just want to look at it a little more carefully to make sure people aren't coming in and just saying, well, this is going to happen and that's going to happen and therefore we need more money. I'll be the first to say that they probably do need more money, but I just like it a little more clear what they're basing that argument on.
Well, I'd say
it's just to be conservative.
Let me just say, we are a public agency, but they are not, and we can ask them to justify their numbers any way we want, but the fact is we're going out to a bid, and if we don't like their bid, we have the option to not accept it. And so I don't really see where these questions are, is how we can demand that they justify what their numbers are. We can ask them, and if we don't like their answer, we just don't accept the bid. But the fact is they are a private entity, and they can price themselves whatever they want.
Everything is registered through the DIR. They have to show records of payment for wages. Mm-hmm. All that's going into the government now, mm-hmm. so it's documented. Mm-hmm.
But they don't have to justify to us as to why.
No. And then
we see bids all over the place, and we don't go to the highest bidder and demand that they justify why their bid was higher, do we?
Right. But when we do get our bids come in, we'll probably take the 2 or 3 lowest bidders and pull them back in and have them sharpen their pencils again. We'll have them go through that process one more time, so we can get the best for our money, of course.
But each vendor will set their own bottom line.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right,
I
can
just
we?
have one more thing to say on this, and then I promise I'll let it go. I've never been in a major negotiation in my life where I didn't ask the other person to justify their position. Go ahead. That's
Okay. All right, do we have a motion on this issue?
I move that we approve the request for proposal specifications for landscape services for Pleasant Valley Sports Complex.
Second.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Director Magner,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Chairman Dixon.
Aye. Okay. All right, next item is consideration and approval to reject all bids for maintenance of yard driveway.
Good evening, Chairman Dixon, members of the board. I want to congratulate you on a great year this year. It was enjoyable. Tonight I'm coming to you to ask you to reject our last bid, if I get this thing to work. Consider and approve to reject all bids for the maintenance yard driveway project. I came to you last month about this. The funding was put in the capital budget workshops. We appropriated $35,000 for this project. Excuse me. In 1977, the maintenance yard was built. It was to house all the equipment and all the delivery trucks that delivered the fertilizer and all the heavy stuff we use. So, December 6, 2017, the board approved specifications to remove and replace the asphalt driveway at the maintenance yard. Construction bids were open on Monday, the September 11th, for the project, and we received 3 bids. Six bidders come out, 3 turned in bids. It was a mandatory job. Like I said, 3 of the 6 came out. Toro Enterprises was the lowest. Hughes Engineering was second. United Construction was third, and then again the estimate for the project was $35. So we're off by a little over $9,000. Right now, there's no fiscal impact to reject this. Any questions?
Mike, can we start with you again?
I just want to state, no questions for Bob. I just want to state that I've walked the entire site out there. I've been on the site walking every square foot, and I'm comfortable with the amount of the original work being done. And the only issue is how much money it is. And I've made a few calls to some friends I have in the industry and stuff, and cement's high right now. Things are going on. I mean, but no one knows what's going to happen 6 months from now or something. So I'm comfortable with the scope of the work. Obviously, I like to see it come in at $35,000, but I don't know if 6 months from now it's going to be $38,000 or $30,000 or $50,000. So I don't know. I've also asked Bob. Well, I mean, just follow up. I did mention to Bob this morning that if we're going to reject this, is there any other work out there, potentially cement work that's required out there at Freedom Park that if we went out to bid again, that we can include this proposal, a new proposal for this site and some other work that's going on. Do you know of any, or nothing came up?
The only thing I thought about after we talked this morning was if the baseball fields go and play, they'll be laying concrete out that way for the walkways. We could have them initiate that with it.
Piggyback on the same time?
Yeah.
But we don't know if that's going forward.
No.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Elaine?
I just said 2020.
This is when the baseball fields go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've also walked the facility. It's a mess. Not only is the concrete bad, the fences are falling down, broken support pipes. In fact, that one gate is probably, I probably shouldn't say this, but it's probably a hazard. That place out there needs so much work. I don't know if we could ever come up with a coin to pay for it. I agree with Mike. I'm okay with the scope, with the exception of adding in those fences and so forth. But, we still have to argue about the money.
We talked about this extensively last month, and my opinion was that it didn't make sense to spend that amount of money on that, and I haven't changed my opinion, so I'm ready to reject all the bids.
Okay. I also went out and walked around and took a look at the driveway there, and it's kind of a crazy patchwork of pieces of gravel and broken concrete and asphalt and funny shapes, and it's hard to imagine how they even came up with the configuration of that driveway. But it is a mess. Looking at it, it looks to me like there's maybe some small areas that maybe we could get away without redoing. I suppose this is not a real visual part of our park system, and it doesn't need to be gorgeous. It just needs to be functional. So I don't have a strong feeling about it one way or the other. I don't know how much money we're gonna save by cutting off a little section, but if we can save a little bit, I suppose it's worth considering. So do we have a motion on this item?
Let me move to reject all bids for the maintenance yard driveway project in order to adjust the design and re-advertise the project.
Second.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
No?
Director Magner,
Aye.
Chairman Dixon.
Aye. All right. Gosh, I'm lost. Where should we go from here? Board reorganization officers election. I'm not really lost. So.
I've done this before. You have a script.
Okay. Board officer elections 2018. I now open the floor for the purpose of nominations for the position of board chairman.
I nominate Director Malloy.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Okay. And
Buddy, second?
I did.
Okay.
Feel free to stumble over each other second.
No, that's okay.
Okay, and I'm required to ask, are there any more nominations? Second time, are there any more nominations? And third time, are there any more nominations? Hearing none, I close the nominations for position of board chairman. And clerk of the board, will you roll call for the first nomination?
Director Magner,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Chairman Dixon.
Aye. Congratulations, Director Malloy.
Thank you.
I now open the floor for the purpose of nominations for the position of board vice chairman. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Director Kelly.
Second.
Okay. Are there any more nominations? Again, any more nominations? And third time, any more nominations? Seeing none, I now close the nominations for the position of board vice chairman. And can we have a roll call, please?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Director Magner,
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Chairman Dixon.
Aye. Congratulations. And I now open the floor for the purpose of nominations for the position of board secretary. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Director Magner.
Second.
Are there any more nominations? Second time, any more nominations? And third time, any more nominations? Hearing none, I close the nominations for the position of board secretary. And can we have roll call?
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Director Magner, Aye. Chairman Dixon.
Aye. Congratulations. All right, and F. Staff, I guess that's you, Mary.
That's me.
Okay.
So traditionally, at this time of the year, we usually like to thank the chair for stepping up to the plate and all the accomplishments this year. And I know one of the big accomplishments this year has been that we've been able to get a needs assessment underway and get that moving forward. So we would like to thank Neil for his, Dr. Dixon and Chairman Dixon for his time, his dedication. And I know that he has loved to have the gavel this year. So now he can practice at home. So when he's bored, he'll be able to use this. Thanks for your service this year, Dr. Dixon.
I was just going to take this one home. So. What a surprise. Thank you very much. But it doesn't come off.
Yeah, it's super.
There was a reason for that.
Have to bang the whole trophy.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a very interesting and educational and informative year, and I would especially like to thank all the staff, Mary and all the staff, for making this possible for me to even complete this job. And you guys have really gone out of your way and bent over backwards for me. And it's been a very enjoyable experience. I appreciate the support of all my co-board members and for the citizens of the district for having elected me to this position and their confidence in re-electing me a second time. So I'm very thankful and look forward to the new leadership and taking my position in the more heckling seat. So, all right. Mary, anything else there? Or? No. Okay. All right. So we'll move on to informational items. Board Chairman. Well, I just kind of made my little statement, and I don't really have much more to say about that, other than just to comment again about the crisis we're having with the fires in our adjacent cities to the north. Our hearts go out to the people who've suffered and been displaced, and I personally know some of them, and I'm sure probably most of the people in this room personally know people who've been affected by this, and it's a terrible tragedy. I hope this is not something we're going to have to do year after year, but the weather patterns look like it may be coming that way. I would encourage citizens, if they are able to make contributions to the American Red Cross, and you can direct those donations to be directed to the Ventura County area. Salvation Army is also taking donations, and those are very much needed. And from what I understand, what they're asking for is monetary donations rather than material donations. So we'll keep everybody in our heart, on our prayers, and if you're able to support them financially, that would be great too. All right, thank you very much. And Ventura County Special Districts Association and CSDA.
Ventura County Special Districts Association meeting was to be last night, and Mike canceled it, which was a good move. We have a lot of people that were affected by the fires up in Ojai and things. So as far as California Special Districts Association, November is an extremely busy month for them, and I physically traveled to Sacramento twice, and I did a telephone meeting with them. They did a whole day session on preparing the legislative proposals for 2018. So it's, I think, 70-some pages long is what we finally came up with. So yes, we're going to see more and more things come out. Interesting conversation tonight about prevailing wage, and that's one of the big issues that it looks like it's going to be a hot item in the legislative body next year. So we'll be on the lookout for that. Bob and and Mary and I will keep on track with that. So, and I will keep you guys up to date as much as I can. So, and I don't have to travel to Sacramento this month, thank goodness.
Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy.
Well, let's back up and say that the next Ventura County Special Districts meeting, or annual meeting, will be on February 5th over here at Sterling Hills. Just let everybody know about that. We already got the reservations in and stuff, and I'm working on those details, finishing that up. Also, I've heard from Elaine Freeman, maybe you've heard this too, is one of the things that's coming up for next year's proposal in Sacramento for the Special Districts Association, California Special Districts Association. One proposal going to the Capitol would be that special districts like ours wouldn't have to go through a city to get the Quimby fees. In other words, the city wouldn't be directing and working the Quimby fees. The Quimby fees would be worked by each one of the special districts themselves. So we would be able to do that ourselves with our own procedures without having to go through the city. And that would be a very important thing, not only for us, but other special districts. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to. But that's one thing I've heard on the radar out there. We can look into that later. On the Santa Monica side, there was no meeting since the last meeting we had here. Our next meeting coming up will be this coming Monday night, which I will attend.
Thank you, Mike. And standing committees, liaison.
We have a meeting coming up with the city regarding the needs assessment. And, shouldn't have personnel on there, so, because we did that this week. We did the movement on it tonight, so. But liaison is what, the 19th, I believe? December 20th. Oh, 20th at 8:30, okay. I was one day off.
All right, finance.
Finance, we're right on track, although this month is Leo's Christmas date. Comes later this month when we get our first property tax increment check, and that gives us guidance on what amounts to about 4/5 of our revenue each year. So we'll see what that comes to later this year, and then we'll have meaningful revenue numbers for the period. As far as expenses go, we're under budget and right on track with everything. The only thing that's different from last year really is the unfunded liability prepayment that we made this year, so that we didn't have to pay any interest, and we paid that all up front. So it shows small variance from previous years, but other than that, we're right on track. But I'll have more relevant news next month. So.
Okay. And policy, policy committee met. We reviewed a number of issues that are going to come up probably in January and February. Mm-hmm. Ordinance 8, what is there?
General use.
General use policies. So some issues with those. Really nothing to report here today, but they'll be coming up in the months to come. So, and foundation.
We're busy meeting monthly, and Megan has been working hard with getting some fundraising things going, or keep going, and appreciate that and things. So we've got some other irons in the fire that we've just not moved forward with yet. So with the timing of the fires and things, why we're kind of waiting, but we'll have a meeting on the, we have a meeting this month. We'll probably in January I'll have another report for you with a little bit of more income and things that we've been able to generate. So.
All right, thank you. And general manager's report.
Yeah, a couple updates. Just to give everybody an update, kind of right now where we're at with the needs assessment. So the statistically valid information, we've received 315. 264 have been through paper and 37 online. So what they'll do is this past week they were going to send out one more postcard, just a reminder to see if they could get any more. The open link has been open. We've received 349 completed, another 296 parcel for a total of 645. That doesn't include the ones that we've received paper in the office. Last week, we sent over 50 back, and we probably have another 25 or so sitting in the office that we'll send forward as well. So getting good response rates for that. Looking at probably tailoring it off around the 11th or toward the end of the next week, depending on how many we continue to receive. Along with that, they're starting to gather some of the initial information, which is what they've seen is just the initial information coming back to them is the lack of space, the types of space needed, so they're trying to narrow that down a little bit more. What they're seeing is gymnasium or active sports places for that, outdoor recreation area that is attributed or alongside the building, and places for lifelong learning, social activities and such. So those are some of the initial things that they're just starting to see. Met with Green Play as well as Architect to come out. One of the things the liaison committee kind of looked at was looking at the space at the community center / senior center. They looked at Freedom Center, looked at Bob Kildee Park Aquatic Center, and then just kind of looked at the old courthouse, where kind of the 4 different areas of just looking to see if those could be converted, if they need to start from scratch. So the architect actually came out. He will start working on some of that. We'll need to get some information back to him, but he came out to take photos and just look at that in general right now, just for space as they're starting to create some of the information.
You said the old courthouse, Mary?
Yeah.
Isn't that supposed to be for the Ventura County Transportation Agency? I'm confused.
Right. Ventura County Transportation has declined. They were negotiating with that.
Oh, okay. That fell through then.
Right.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So that was one of the things that one of the city council members asked just to have it looked at to see if that would even, depending on space. So that way he at least had a visual of what those spaces look like. Update everybody on the tree inventory. West Coast arborists have finished their initial assessment of the trees. So currently there's 19 trees have been identified as dead or need attention. There's another 26 that have been identified as diseased and in poor condition. So we're working with them. Staff is working with them right now to kind of look at where those trees are located, to look at the priorities. So are they on fence lines? Are they next to somebody's house? Are they next to playground? And then they'll start assessing. So the goal would be to get all those trees out in the next 6 months. So that's where we're at with that right now. Capital projects, if you've been over at the administration building and over in room 6 or 7, there's been some nice noise that has been taking place over there. So hopefully the roofs will be done in the next week or so, and then they'll move over to Mission Oaks. The water heaters are in the process of being ordered for the pool, so we're working on those. And then Charter Oaks right now has had 6 removed trees thus far. So trying to get some of that stuff done, thankfully, before some of this wind has come in. So that's where we're at with that. Have met with pickleball and tennis. We'll be bringing some information back in January regarding that. So we continue having discussions with those 2 groups as we're continuing to do that, as well as working with staff to get pricing for for potential sound walls and what all of that kind of stuff looks like. So that'll be coming back to the board in January. And then still working with the school. This seems to be a continued issue. They put a new pump out at Mission Oaks for the water, or for their on their side, which is tapped into the dog fountain, and we've continued to have problems. It's up, it's down, it's up. They had to reorder pumps because apparently they got bad ones. Excuse me. So we're in the process of, we've been in conversations and starting to get quotes to look to see what we need to do if there's something else that we can do as a backup, because this has now been happening for about the last year, and it's up, it's down, and it's just not real reliable. So those are some of the updates that we have as we're continuing to move forward.
And I guess you're going to obviously send out a notice about the Christmas parade tomorrow or something. You're going to work on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before joking. Yeah, so once again, it's with sadness that we have to announce that the Christmas parade will not be going, but we will get that out. I know that staff went back tonight to call the parade entrance to give them a heads up, but we'll be working to put something up online on our website, as well as working with the city so they can get that out and get it out to the media.
Okay, oral communications. Mike, anything new?
No, thank you, staff. Same as, I just want to second what Neil Dixon was talking about. Thank you, staff and everybody, for the great year. We made a lot of progress this year, and I'm looking forward to next year.
Wayne?
Neil, great job. Your first time at the gavel was a very good year for you and for all of us. So, and once again, thanks to the staff for all of the great work that they do. As of today is December 7th, remembering Pearl Harbor. And I'd like to thank all of those who have served or are currently serving in our military. And happy holidays to everybody else.
Bob?
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Dixon, for performing admirably. I've known you for a few years now, and doctors and lawyers don't often get along, but I now know why everyone likes you.
That was a compliment, but it came from a lawyer, so you had to kind of read between the lines.
I just want to make sure everybody understands that canceling the Christmas parade was not something done lightly by this board. I personally have 7 grandkids that wanted to ride in the parade, and they're not going to be happy about it. But sometimes you just have to make hard decisions, and that's what this board did, and we'll promise to get back next year and give you the best parade you've ever had. Something else happened to me this week. Everybody's talking about, in some cases, experiencing the fires, and some of it quite tragic. But I ran into 2 people who lost their houses in the fires. And I thought that was fairly amazing that little me here in Camarillo would run into 2 people who lost their houses while I was in Camarillo. Until I find out that a friend of my son-in-law, he's a LA City fireman, that one of the guys he works with lost his house, and he's also a fireman. So that's 3 in a single week, and I just found that quite amazing that one person would run into that many people. So this is something that is, I mean, I don't really know what to think about it, but I just think that if you get a moment, think about some of these people who are going for it. In one case, the one fireman, all he had left was his uniform that he was wearing. His kids and his wife were moved out, and my son-in-law had to actually go to see if his house was still there, and it wasn't. And he didn't have a stitch of clothes except his uniform to wear. So you get a chance to help out. Please help out these people that have gone through something that, it's easy to read about it in the newspaper, but when it happens to you, I can't even imagine how devastating that could be. I want to thank my fellow board members who do a wonderful job at what they do. They're smart, intelligent, quick-witted, funny. They can get into it with you, but nobody could ever say that they don't care about what they're doing. They come loaded for bear every single time. You have to be on top of your game to do this. Some are more talented than others, but there's no one that doesn't come here and try to perform the best that they can for the district. All the staff, they do so much with so little, and I know I don't say thanks a lot as often as I should, but thank you for everything that you do. I actually really do appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to say Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. And I hope everybody enjoys the holidays.
So, I obviously I want to congratulate you on doing it for your first time. I remember when I did it my first time, and I wasn't particularly welcomed on the board at the time, and I learned so much, as I know you have, about how things work inside the building and how the board works, and it was a really great experience, and it'll make you a better board member for the future. I'm glad you did it. I'm really glad this board gets along and that everybody takes their turn doing all the jobs. I see other communities where things aren't like that, where blocks of members block out other people, and I just think it's really inappropriate and the wrong way to do it. I'm really glad we don't have that here. We work as a team, which is what we should do. Pool the knowledge that we all have individually to always come up with a better answer by working with each other. I'd also like to congratulate Lisa and Tim Rule, who are the publishers of the Acorn newspapers, and they were named today by the California Press Association as the Newspaper Executives of the Year, which is covers an awful lot of media. The Acorn newspapers do a really good job of covering this community. You know, one of the most important things that we need to do our job well is to be able to communicate what we're doing with the community, and they do a really good job of that. In fact, the reporter in TO that covers the Conejo meetings actually posts on Twitter what they're talking about and what's going on, and I've actually learned a few things about how Conejo runs by following their Twitter feed. So, you know, it's really useful, and, you know, since the paper's been here, we've had a series of different people working with us, and we've developed a good relationship, and they help us do our job, and I'm happy to see them getting appreciation for it. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that the latest data, you know, one of the things about Twitter is you get addicted to the latest information, but the latest data on the Thomas fire is 439 buildings have been destroyed, 85 have been damaged. There's 115,000 acres involved in the fire, and they're still at only 5% containment. And that 5% is basically where the fire's bumped into a thing that won't move, like Highway 126. So it's basically burning, you know, uncontrollably. And it's from the Pacific Ocean to Fillmore now. So we're in the midst of an unprecedented disaster. And I'm as unhappy as any that I don't get to wear my USC jacket and hand the appreciation award to the famous Heisman Trophy tailback for the Trojans at the parade. But, you know, there's much more important things that we need to do and that the community needs to do. And more importantly, both police and fire that we depend on to put on the parade, they need to be available to do other things. We also have our senior center as a potential evacuation site, which, you know, at any time that fire could jump and start our way. There's now, I think, 16 fires burning throughout the state. The fire conditions are at unprecedented levels right now. I know you all remember we had record rains. You know, in Camarillo Springs, the rain came up to our front door, and all the brush that grew from all that is now just dry as a bone and ready to explode. So I think discretion is the right decision on the parade, even though everybody here in the community is going to miss it. So that's all I have. And, oh, by the way, next year, the policy is no yellow cards. I really like the way that worked today. No public comment. So I'll just, like, change the rules. I'll just let you all give you all a heads up.
Okay. Well, I've already kind of said my piece. I don't really want to be repetitive, but I will, again, say thank you to all the board members, all the staff here for the wonderful job they did and helped support me through this past year. And I appreciate working with every one of you. I know, like Director Kelly, maybe I'm not as visible and appreciative as you guys might think, but I really do admire the work that you do. And thank you very much. And I appreciate this board. And I agree with Director Kelly. Exceptional board, people who really care about this community. This is, in case you're wondering, this is not a really great paying job, And the people here are doing this because they care about what's happening in their community. And I'm proud to be part of it. So with that, we will adjourn.
Do we have any cake or anything back there?